It really sucks when you have to go back on your opinion, when you have to admit that you were wrong. It really sucks. I mean, I know better. I mean, I've been wrong many, many times, right? Um, so this is one of those episodes where I actually have to admit that I was wrong. In 2019, I got on this bandwagon journey, whatever you call it, to write a book. My book, right behind me, Dream Bold, Start Smart, is a roadmap for someone wanting to start a business, right? I've put 25 years of my experience into my book. I mean, 20 by then it was actually 15 years. Right now it's 20 years, so not 25. So I've put all of my experience into all of my knowledge, all of my experience with businesses, and all of those things into that book. And initially, I wrote my manuscript in about 3.5 months. I woke up every day, every weekday on at 6 a.m. Actually 5:55, and I would join the authors club, and I would write for about an hour with other authors and stuff. And so that's what I've kind of that's what I kind of did. And the reason it was so fast and fairly easy, there were people there who still didn't release their books 6 years later. But the reason it was easy, even though nothing easy about it, was because easy and fast was because I had this knowledge that I've accumulated, this knowledge and experience of working with people that I've accumulated, right? So I did that. And my first draft, I've submitted to a hybrid publisher. My first draft was had a chapter 4 or 5, I can't remember, but one of those chapters used to be called "Partnerships Never Work." Because to my core, for 15 years of working with businesses and working with partnerships and doing all of those things, I have come to believe that partnerships don't work. So when we went through the process, and if you know anything, about book publishing or book writing, when you write a book, write your first draft. And my editor, AJ Harper, says that it's shitty first draft, right? So, and she's right. That first draft then is turned into. We have an expression in Russian that you turn a piece of into a candy, basically. But that's the process. You take something that's goodish, and then through edits, through thinking through those concepts and things and teaching points and takeaways and all of those things, then you turn it into something good with the help of other professionals. And essentially, that's what happened when the time came to edit that book. When the editing team started doing that, they asked me to change the title of the book, or rather, I mean, not the book, the chapter. Instead of saying "Partnerships Never Work," which alienates some people, and every partnership that has come to me, except with a few exceptions, dissolved over time. Even though I warned them that it might not work, because think about it this way: partnerships are like marriages, just without the benefits. Like, it makes sense. You have to learn to work with another person, but there's not like outside of the business, there's nothing else that you get from it or give. So basically, we worked with the editors, and they asked me to change the title of that chapter to not call it "Partnerships Never Work." So eventually, the chapter became called, or the first 5 chapters were about kind of the business model, the partnerships, that where to incorporate, and things like that. So that chapter was changed to "Do you need a partner?" And inside that chapter, I talk about how I give all these examples of my clients, former and present, who didn't have great experiences, and some of them are actually terrifying experiences of partnerships. But anyway, so that's kind of where that is, and I've changed that title. And it took me, I've believed in not having partners probably since 2005, maybe 2000, and yeah, definitely 2009, because I've seen some really bad partnerships, even as a bookkeeper, where I wasn't involved in the day to day, conversations, communication between partners, and things like that. one partner was fired, and all of those things. Like even then, I saw how terrible they could be. And I would ask my um, uh, dad back then, if I should get a partner and stuff, and he would say absolutely not. So, and I've asked other people, other mentors, and things like that, and they were like absolutely not. So that's what I believed for 15, 14 years. And recently, because I got a degree in psychology, I mean, it was like a second bachelor, so it was a shorter experience. Because of that, I also changed my mind. I now believe, especially after reading this book called Rebel Ideas, because it actually called me on some of the things that I believed in, some assumptions I had. I now believe that partnerships can be much more successful than individually led businesses, because collective brain, if facilitated correctly, facilitated the right way, will provide a much better decision making process, which is what business is all about. And so collective brain is so much more powerful than an individual brain. And that's why we have coaches. That's why we have mentors and facilitators and all of these things. And over the years, I've actually had one partnership, then they acquired another partnership and stuff. But I've had one partnership where I was asked to facilitate. I was asked to mediate the relationship. I was asked to, I would talk to one partner and another partner, and kind of talk and help them talk to each other. There were 3 partners total. But over the years, I've kind of learned to get a feel for people. And what I found, because of my psychology learning training, I told you I always learn. I always keep learning new things, because my brain looks for ways to help clients from a different angle. Um, because of what I've learned in psychology, because of what I've seen through my partners, because of what I've seen through mediating this partnership relationship for the last 13, 14 years, because of that, I now believe that with the right facilitator, mediator, who has some psychology training, who has some coaching training, especially, I'm in Gestalt psychology, not CBT. CBT is great for certain things, but what is to me boring about CBT is that there's, a protocol for everything. And that's it. There's no thinking process, there's no feeling process, there's no human intelligence behind that process, just application of protocols that somebody else designed. In that sense, I love Gestalt psychology, because it's all about the opposite of that. So all about the feelings, the process. I mean, the feelings, the human, the interaction between a therapist and a client, and things like that. Even though I'm not a therapist and never will be, I use psychological techniques to help me understand what people are trying to say when they're saying words. What's in that fine print? What are they not saying directly? What's between the lines? All of those things, and help them hear each other in that same way. That's what business mediation is really about. It's about managing that relationship and understanding what you put into that relationship and what you get out. So, yep, this, I admit it, it's official. I have changed my mind. I think that partnerships can work really well if you have the right facilitator, and that facilitator probably needs to be involved long term. Maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter, maybe once a week, whatever that is. That process is extremely valuable, and honestly extremely helpful and elevating. You can get so much further up if you have something like that going on. And again, collective brain is always better. That's why publicly traded companies have boardrooms, right? Board of directors, because collectively making decisions is always better, because people, and you want cognitive diversity. That's what the author of Rebel Ideas talks about, which I really like, because he puts it in words that I wouldn't because I just don't think of it that way, but it's the same concept, just put in different words. He talks about cognitive diversity of that collective brain. So he talks about different examples of CIA and different organizations that um, have gone through transformations because of lack of cognitive diversity. People from different backgrounds bring their own perspective. People who have been abused bring a different perspective. People who have been um, grew up poor or less fortunate bring a different perspective. People who grew up fortunate bring a different perspective. And only a really skilled facilitator, and the word facilitator is not really doing it for me, but let's say facilitator for now until I can figure it out. That facilitator can work that magic of helping people talk to each other and bring their own perspective for the greater good, for the group, for the good of the group, if that makes sense. So I said it. I now think that partnerships can actually be better businesses. Partners can build better businesses if you have the proper facilitator working with the entire group and each individual client as a support system.